warm good evening to our viewers. Welcome to the Evening Review Show. I'm your host, Matthias Aufiko. Of course, it's a chilly winter evening, but of course, national affairs have to continue, and we have to keep ourselves warm by engaging in discourse that builds our republic. We're joined in the studio tonight by Mr. Henry Aderam. He's from the Namibia Competition Commission, a senior legal analyst there. Mr. Aderam, good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Matthias. Thank you for having me.
No, it's indeed a pleasure having you here. Well, we understand the Commission is busy at work putting the final touches in place for the Institutional Partnerships Conference that's going to take place on Thursday here in Windhoek. Maybe just for the benefit of the viewers, just a brief introduction and summary about what this conference is all about and why it's important for us as Namibia.
Yes. No, thank you, Matthias. This conference, the Institutional Partnership Conference, it's a conference that is done in collaboration between the Namibian Competition Commission, the German Federal Ministry for Economic Affairs and Climate Action, and the Adelam, which is the competition authority of Germany. Yeah. So we, as the Namibian Competition Commission, had a relationship or an institutional partnership with the Adelam, where basically the purpose of that partnership was to enhance the Commission's basically capacity by strengthening enforcement in terms of policy and laws. So we've, throughout the partnership, developed tools, methods, and strategies which guide our work. This was done through exchanges of staff exchanges, workshops, and trainings. But now that partnership is coming to an end, and is basically now the basis upon which this conference is going to be hosted. Yeah. So the conference, in essence, is going to sort of basically just symbolize what has been happening as a result of the partnership between the competition authorities. And the conference basically just aims to advocate for the benefits of and the importance of competition regulation in Namibia. Yeah. Yes. So we will be having speakers, regional speakers, international speakers as well as local speakers from within the Namibian Competition Commission as well, that will just touch on some of the issues that we find contentious in terms of competition regulation. Yeah. Yes.
Perhaps some viewers would not be privy as to the work that the Commission does. Yes. Maybe just also perhaps a brief overview of the work that the Namibia Competition does within the space that we operate in Namibia.
Yes. The Competition Commission is a regulatory authority for competition in Namibia. Its principal mandate is basically to administer the Competition Act 2 of 2003, which basically just exists to safeguard competition within the Namibian economy in order to achieve better prices for goods for consumers, better choices for consumers, and also just to have a greater spread of ownership in terms of the economy, specifically for historically disadvantaged people. So those are some of the aims of competition regulation. Yeah. So the Commission does achieve or attempt to achieve those aims through regulation of what we call restrictive business practices and abuse of dominance practices, as well as major regulation. So with restrictive business practices, we look at agreements or practices between, for instance, competitors. Yeah. And we also look at practices between parties, perhaps in a vertical relationship, being a supplier and, for instance, a retailer. So we look at businesses in those relationships. What we are basically trying to assess or investigate is to determine whether there's any substantial lessening of competition. And that manifests in a manner where you maybe have companies that collude to fix prices, which then obviously leaves consumers at the detriment of such practices, because then they end up paying, for instance, high prices or lack of choice. So that is some of the work that we do. We also look at mergers, where basically that is a bit preemptive in terms of regulation, where if a merger is to occur, you would need to be approved by the Competition Commission before you could implement the merger. Yeah. Otherwise, then it's also a contravention of the Act. We also do conduct market studies. Market studies are basically just research in various industries. We've done studies in the automotive industry as well as the franchise industry. And the purposes of those studies, sometimes the purpose of the studies is just to determine the level of competition in those sectors. For instance, whether there are high barriers of entry, the number of competitors, the size of the competitors, and so forth.
Yeah.
Yes, and
Okay.
also, yes.
Yeah. So as far as human resources is concerned, what is the status quo like at the Namibia Competition Commission? Sounds like quite complex work that you guys undertake on a daily basis.
Yes, I mean, we do have a lot of work. I think our staff count is slightly above perhaps 30. Yes, but I mean, we make do with what we have. We try to be creative and just make do with what resources we have.
Yeah.
Yes.
So in terms of compliance, what is the market's reaction to the work that you do?
Well, when it comes to compliance, I think there's the compliance levels I would think are low, but I wouldn't necessarily think they are low because there's perhaps a lack of interest to comply, but rather maybe a lack of awareness of competition regulation in Namibia. And that is also the essence of the conference. It's basically now to shed light to what we do and our mandate. But through our engagements, for instance, with now the parties that we maybe investigate, through investigations, you find that the parties actually demonstrate a willingness to comply. We do get cases that we, for instance, enter into settlement agreements where parties basically just admit liability in terms of transgressing the act, and also just in terms of willingness to adapt certain measures that we as a commission consider that they might be befitting of addressing any of the issues that we pick up in terms of our investigation. So I think compliance, yes, definitely I think it's low, but perhaps a lack of awareness is also a contributing factor to that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So in terms of as far as recurrence is concerned, what are some of the recurring themes as far as when your investigations are concerned? What are some of the cases that seem to be prevalent?
I think as of late, what has become contentious now, I think, is procurement. I think procurement is one of the contentious areas as of late. I mean, the government probably being the largest procurer of goods and services in the economy it is basically a lifeline to a whole lot of SMEs and a whole lot of companies in our economy when it comes to procurement. So you find procurement contracts, for instance, that limit perhaps the supply of certain goods to, for instance, a certain brand, and obviously that by design limits people who can access that brand, or sort of like create some sort of preferential treatment to whoever is the owner of that brand. Yes, so those are some of the issues. Exclusive agreements between certain suppliers, those are also issues that we are experiencing as well in terms of investigation. Yeah.
Okay. So how would you describe the status of competition as far as doing business is concerned in the country as a commission, and where is it that you want to see us moving as a country as far as these practices are concerned?
Yes, the status of competition, I think, is a bit low in terms of compliance, obviously, and the very essence of competition regulation is basically just to incentivize companies to ensure that they innovate in order to obtain better prices for consumers, to offer better prices to consumers in order to attain business from one another. So the state of competition, or what we would want to achieve, is a economy that performs optimally, but that can only be achieved if we safeguard the integrity and the efficientness of competition, the whole process of competition. It doesn't necessarily exist to protect one particular competitor over another, but rather the whole process. Yes.
Okay. I mean, there's also been concerns from those within the market saying that is this competition regulation more a thing of trying to restrict businesses, or is it a practice that can also promote good business practices? What do you say to those who have such concerns?
I think that notion might be, I think, a little bit misplaced.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, in terms of even, for instance, the fines that we impose, we kept it at a certain level to ensure that the purposes of punishing you is not to drive you out of business, but perhaps to just create some sort of deterrence theory where others will be now obliged to comply with competition regulation for fear of obviously being imposed with those fines. So. I think the notion that is restricting business is not quite correct. I think the opposite is actually true, in the sense that now, in terms of when you regulate competition, you basically encourage competitors to compete vigorously amongst one another. Absent that, you basically have a condition where competitors acting in a certain market have no incentive to actually then compete with one another, but rather to collude. And obviously, collusion now brings all these things of high increases of prices and lack of choice, and also perhaps no regard to quality in terms of products and services because of the lack of choice that consumers might have. Yes.
Okay. So what would you say are some of the challenges that you face during the execution of your work as far as it's concerned?
Yes, we do face challenges, and some of those are mostly with regards to processes that are not necessarily within the control of the Commission. For instance, when it comes to prosecution of our cases, we obviously internally first start with investigations, and once that is done, we then approach the High Court basically now to prosecute, to basically obtain a declaratory order to confirm our findings. But then you find that these cases tend to take a bit too long because our cases are held in the High Court, and the High Court, being a court of inherent jurisdiction, has quite a number of matters that it hears as well. So you can imagine how full the court rolls are, and the turnaround time in terms of from the point where a complaint, for instance, was lodged to a time where maybe the High Court actually pronounces itself at the end of the day. I think one of the other challenges we also experience is sometimes the lack of compliance from the parties when it comes to information requests. So obviously, as we do our investigations, we issue information requests to request information that will ordinarily obviously form the basis upon which we make our conclusion in terms of the investigation. But then you find parties that do not comply, and which obviously there's a remedy in terms of the Act. It constitutes as a criminal offense. But then even with that process is a process that involves now obviously starting opening a case with the police and eventually having that matter being prosecuted by the Prosecutor General. Yes, but then we do find in other jurisdictions, for instance, the jurisdiction of our counterparts, the Germans from the Bundeskartellamt, you find that they actually have powers to impose fines for non-compliance with this information request there and then, without the necessity of involving external parties. And also regionally, we have learned that from some of our counterparts, they have specialized tribunals that deal with strictly competition matters. But we are in the process of reviewing our laws, and those are some of the issues that we are trying to iron out. Yes.
Okay. Mr. Aderam, we just head for a short commercial break, and we'll be back to continue the conversation.
Right.
For our viewers, we head for a short break. Stay tuned.
Connection. It's in the human touch, the feeling of belonging. It inspires us and empowers us, creates clarity from complexity. It starts new conversations, unlocks the power of advice, and makes an impact on your life. At Alex Forbes, we pioneer insight to provide you with advice that connects your decisions of today to your impact tomorrow.
Well, welcome back from the break. Mr. Aderam, just to continue our conversation, You mentioned before we went for the break that in terms of compliance, maybe some of the challenges you would face is businesses not coming forth with requested information during your investigation and so on.
Yes.
But as a business owner, I might argue that some of the information is confidential.
Indeed.
As far as my business is concerned, and it might jeopardize my operations.
Indeed.
So to that, what does the Commission say, and what are the modalities in place to ensure that information is used for the right purposes, which it's requested for?
Indeed. Yes, I know those are very valid concerns. I mean, the information that we request may sometimes contain trade secrets and business strategies, but the Commission has a confidentiality regime in place where basically when we request for this information, we alert the parties that they can claim confidentiality in terms of the information that they wish to submit or that we are requesting to submit to the Commission. There is obviously now a regime in place between the Commission and the parties that we engage, but also internally as employees, we are mandated in terms of the Act to actually exercise confidentiality when it comes to any of the information that we come across in terms of our work.
Yeah.
Yes, so there's definitely confidentiality that could be claimed, and the parties can obviously we can allay those fears through confidentiality claim.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Back to Thursday's conference. Of course, I would want to know what is it that the competition would want to draw lessons from your counterparts that will be joining you on Thursday, as far as improving your operations is concerned and building on what you have on the ground so far.
Yes. So, I mean, competition regulation for us really just started in 2009. That's when the Namibian Competition Commission started operating. So competition regulation has been in Namibia for plus minus 15 years. Yeah. But then it's an ever-evolving field, and those evolvements are determined by technological advancements, ever-changing market conditions, and the emergence of, for instance, new markets such as the digital markets, energy. I mean, Namibia has recently experienced a surge in oil discoveries. And also the government's drive towards green hydrogen. So what we intend on, or what we aim to achieve in terms of lessons, is this how the senior jurisdictions to ours have dealt with some of these issues in terms of evolution and in terms of market changes, and also on issues such as, for instance, leniency applications. Those are some of the things that are part of the program for discussion on Thursday. So that is really what we intend on canvassing. I mean, those jurisdictions have gone through much longer periods of regulation than ours, so I'm sure we can learn a thing or two and leverage off that. Yes.
Okay. As far as fines are concerned, and I know there's always this notion that punishment shouldn't always just be punitive in nature, but also educative, to ensure that tomorrow, at least through those that you investigate, would learn something from that. How are you dealing with that aspect to ensure that you maintain the harmonious relationship between your stakeholders and the Commission?
Yes, I mean, at the end of the day, whatever we do is informed by the Competition Act. But in terms of stakeholder engagement and ensuring a culture of compliance, what we usually do is we also request that some of those parties develop competition law compliance programs that they obviously then share with us to just review whether they cover what we think needs to be covered, and obviously just as an internal mechanism that will guide them in terms of doing business going forward. So those are some of the things that we consider as well. But I mean, like I'm saying, like I've said earlier, the imposition of a fine is not necessarily, I mean, it's punitive in nature, obviously, but the idea is not necessarily to fine you, so to drive you out of business. There are a lot of factors that we consider. I mean, the market circumstances, for instance, within which that conduct took place, for how long that conduct took place, and maybe the level of profit that is derived from that conduct. So you might find instances where there are circumstances that actually even justify imposition of a higher fine, and those that warrant a much lesser fine. Yes.
Okay. I see here on the program, one of the panel discussions will be on the role of a corporate leniency program in competition regulation.
Yes.
What is that all about? What can attendees expect during the discussion?
So, corporate leniency program is one of the tools that we utilize for detection and prosecution of cartels. So basically, a cartel is an arrangement where you have competitors that basically come together and collude to, for instance, maybe fix prices for a particular good that they sell, or they maybe allocate each other markets that you only sell here and I sell here. So those kinds of arrangements are by their very nature secretive and very difficult to detect. So the leniency program is then a program that offers some sort of immunity to any cartel participant that then comes forward to the commission, that reports or gives us evidence with regards to a cartel. So that is in essence really what you are going to, the conversations will then center around the key features of what that involves in terms of the whole process, how that information is safeguarded, and up until what time can immunity be granted, and what are the requirements, and if are there any conditions, for instance, that could be imposed. So basically that is what the discussion on leniency will center around, but in essence it's just a tool where competitors or cartel participants can self-report to the commission for purposes of prosecuting a cartel, and in exchange they get some sort of immunity in terms of maybe a reduction of a fine or non-imposition thereof even. Yes.
Okay. So have we had any cases of cartels that the Commission has unearthed over the years?
Yes, we've had a few, and we've also had a few leniency applications. I think one of the cartels we've dealt with is, I think, between insurance companies, where they had sort of fixed a markup price that they would pay to panel bidders for purposes of insurance, obviously. And this that is one of those that is completed. Others are still pending. I can't really get into much detail with regards to those.
Okay. I see another area of discussion will be the industry and the business community's experience with the competition as far as competition regulation is concerned.
Yes.
What is the status quo like?
I mean, with regards to industry, for instance, the legal fraternity, obviously there's always challenges in terms of even the processes internally. We've had cases where we are being taken on review in terms of how we are doing things. So we encourage dialogue to understand each other, and perhaps also just because we're also in a process of reviewing our laws, to just get a better understanding of what challenges industries are experiencing in terms of competition regulation when they engage with us, the business community in terms of their respective industries, or perhaps even in terms of how they approach the commission if they have issues that they would want to raise. So that is the idea there.
Okay. Just as we wrap up, the future of competition regulation in Namibia. I see here energy markets and digital markets has been singled out as a discussion point on its own. And you did mention, of course, the oil discoveries, the digital markets, and so forth. What would an ideal future look like for the Competition Commission as far as these future industries are concerned? Where would you want to see yourself in the coming years? Of course, building on experiences learned from platforms such as the conference on Thursday.
Yes. No, I think for us, competition in those industries, what we would want to see is basically just a situation where we have a lot of market players in the industry, and not have industries that are foreclosed to to a limited number of competitors, which then results in monopolies. And monopolies are not good for you and I. I mean, at the end of the day, they affect the consumers on the ground at the end of the day. So you would also want to have a greater spread of ownership in terms of the economy. Some of these industries are really big, and there should be an opportunity for everyone to participate equitably in the economy. That is what we would want to see.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Maybe just your exit words as far as Thursday is concerned and going forward.
Yes, I would really just want to appeal to the public to please attend this conference. It will be held on Thursday, the 20th of June. It's from 8 to 5 at Windhoek Country Club. We are a public authority. We exercise a public power in terms of the Act, so it means we are also accountable to the public, and it will really, really help us if we get feedback from the relevant stakeholders, just to aid us in our commitment to continuously improve the execution of our mandate.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, Mr. Aderam, thank you very much for your time this evening, and we wish you well for Thursday and beyond.
Thank you, Matthias.
Thank you for coming through.
Thank you for
To
having
our
us.
viewers, that's it from the Evening Review team this evening. Thank you for staying tuned. See you again tomorrow, same time, same place. Have a pleasant evening.